I think when you're a kid, there should be a rule that at least one of your grandparents ought to be your best friend. I know that doesn't work out for everybody. Not everybody knows their grandparents or even has the opportunity to meet them. But I was fortunate. I knew some of my grandparents growing up, and I want to say that my grandpa Bill was probably my best friend when I was a little kid. I wasn't fortunate enough to inherit any of his belongings when he passed away, but I do have this toolbox that we built together when I was growing up I lived in Bartow, Florida in the 70s, and he lived in Missouri with my grandma, and I was always excited when I knew that they were coming down to visit or we were going up to visit. But I want to say that we built this toolbox in my dad's shop behind our house in Bartow, Florida, sometime in the 70s. I've had it ever since. Everywhere I've moved to, this thing has gone with me. I generally keep hammers and small pry bars and tin snips, stuff, that just odd tools that stay in there. And it lives right in that slot there to the left, underneath the wire wheel. I've painted this thing several different colors over the years, and most recently, obviously, the last time I cleaned it up, I painted it red, and then I lined the inside of it with cedar, just because I had it laying around. But that's one memory I have of my grandpa. Another memory is he was a real estate agent, but he also had a lawnmower repair shop. And I know that's an odd combination, right? But that lawnmower repair shop was right behind his house, and it always smelled like stale gas in there, and there was always parts all over the workbench, kind of like that. Gaskets, carburetors, spark plugs, everywhere, and it smelled like stale gas. And then out in front of the workshop, my grandpa always had a tomato patch every year. And I love the smell to this day of tomato plants. And when I smell tomato plants and stale gas, it reminds me of my grandpa. Now I have some other things that belong to my other grandpas, like that double bit axe right there. It belonged to my great grandpa on my dad's side. I've got a little .22 rifle that belonged to my grandpa on my dad's side. And some other odds and ends that belong to other members of my family, like wallets and watches and different things. But this one is probably my favorite. I feel like in an earlier video I showed this hammer as part of my ball peen hammer collection, and I told a little bit about it, but I didn't give a full history about how I came into possession of it. So this is what I think. As far as I can remember, this is what I think about this hammer. In 1971, we lived in a rent house in Lakeland, Florida, while we were waiting on our house in Bartow, Florida to be built. And when we lived in Lakeland, we lived next door to an older couple, a Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence Christensen, Larry Christensen. And Larry was a retired machinist, and he worked for a company called FMC in Lakeland. I can still remember driving by that factory and seeing big red letters on the side of the building, FMC. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that stood for Food Machinery Corporation. And I believe what he did was make machinery for the food processing industry. I could be wrong about all of that, but that's what I think. That's what I remember. And I know that Mr. Christensen would make tools in his spare time, and I'm 100% sure that he made this hammer. This thing is a precision ground hammer, or turned. It's probably turned on some kind of lathe, metal lathe, and it has his initials stamped in it right there. Can you see that? LC, Larry Christensen. He probably carved this handle out. I've never seen a hammer handle exactly like that. But the way I came into possession of it is when me and my brother-in-law went down a couple years ago to Port Charlotte to clean out my dad's tool shed. This was in one of the roll-around toolboxes that I brought back, and it was rusty. The handle was in sad shape, so I cleaned it all up, put boiled linseed oil on the handle, re-blued that, and oiled it. And when I cleaned that rust off of there, that Port Charlotte patina, I saw that LC and I thought to myself, well, I know exactly where that hammer came from. And so that thing will probably live with me at least the rest of my life, and then one of my kids will inherit it. And I'll be sure and let them know the story of it, whether they care or not, I don't know. But so yeah, that's how that hammer came into my possession.